intro for me today, but this song has got me hyped. This agent has got me hyped, and I wanted to start with this clip, this song, which is the official agent music for Harbor, because Raja means king in Hindi, and Harbor is going to be the king of retakes, and that is just the start of sort of what I wanted to talk about in this video, which is even though Harbor and Viper are both now the only two agents with wall smokes, and people have been speaking about Harbor being sort of a replacement for Viper or cutting into Viper's pick rate the same way that Fade was designed to cut into Sova's pick rate. I don't think Harbor is necessarily a replacement for Viper. I think their playstyles are going to be very, very different, but it might open up different team comps on certain maps, especially things like Breeze, where you're not beholden to the Viper anymore, and that means you might be able to run different things with Harbor as opposed to Viper, because their playstyles are going to be very different. So let's jump into the gameplay reveal trailer, and we're going to look at those abilities firstly for anyone who hasn't seen them yet, and then we're going to talk about the theory behind how I think he's actually going to play out. So just while this starts to run, something I want to touch on is just the idea of agents having subclasses. Now, this isn't something that's explicit in the game, but it's implicit in the design of agents. So let's start with Viper. And Viper is often referred to as like a Sentinel subclass. And just before we look at the wall here, a Sentinel subclass, and that's because Viper's really good at anchoring a site and shutting down a site, quite good on that lurk and on that flank on defense, and she's able to affect the map in a global sense. She doesn't need to be near her abilities. Once they've been preset, she can activate them from the other side of the map. Whereas Harbor is very different. All of his abilities are localized throws. You launch them, and even though the wall's got quite a long range, you still have to be around where you want the wall when you want to active. So that's what I want you guys to just be thinking about in the back of the mind while we go through these abilities. And then we're going to get looking into why I think Harbor's more of an initiator subclass as opposed to Viper's Sentinel subclass. And that's going to feed into why they play out very differently. So we have the wall. It's like the length and height of a Viper wall, except you can curve it like a Phoenix wall. You can send it through game walls. So Phoenix, you know, you can't send it straight through a brick wall. With Harbor's wall, you can. Second, like tidal wave ability here is one that's a big vertical smoke that moves forward. You can reactivate it to pause it or like have it hold up during a doorway. And then this is the one that everyone's been talking about for a while now. This is the dome smoke, where it has a health pool. It's not completely invincible, but it does block bullets. It's got 500 health, I think was the number that I saw. And it blocks bullets, including jet knives and Chambers Headhunter and Killjoy turret bullets. Anything that's coded as a bullet, it will block from going through, which is really cool. So as you can see, this wall is probably going to be really good for opening up different parts of sites and different types of pushes. And here we have the ultimate. Now this is like a big groundswell of water, and any enemies in the range of the water gets sent out in front of you. Think like a breach ult or a fade ult, but it's a circle hitbox rather than a square. Any enemies in that will have like a concussion stun circle come like spawn around them, and it will stun them. I think it's quite a slow stun, so it is kind of avoidable, but it's more about creating that space to be unsafe for your opponents, and that will happen 3 times throughout the ultimate. I believe every 3 or so seconds. So I don't have the exact numbers on any of that thing yet. You can see it also creates a bit of a visual effect above the agents, which means you can use that to find out where agents are, which is typically revealing agents is typically an initiator's type of ability. And you can see with it like launching out in front of you and creating like an unsafe space in front of you, that's similar to Fade and Breach, which are initiator ultimates. So, you know, that's where we can start to see more of that initiator subclass coming into it. So as you can see, we're starting to put together this idea where Harbor is going to be playing and running with the team for both site hits and for retakes. He might not necessarily be super good at holding sites. It doesn't have a massive amount of stall. You know, for Viper to be able to stall with her smokes that create vulnerability and decay and her mollies, which do a ton of damage, especially with those things combined, can really lock down a site. But for Harbor, his big long wall has a very slight slow through it. His tidal wave smoke, which is called Cascade, is a shorter smoke. I don't think that's a full 15 length smoke. And then his this is the big difference here. Here's throwable, the invulnerable shield orb smoke. Lasts for however long, but it can be shot out by opponents. So you don't get to decide when and how long things are smoked for. That's going to have very different use case scenarios to other smokes because you're not going to be blocking sight lines with it. You're going to be using it to protect teammates who are planting or defusing. You're going to be using it to get out of trouble and, you know, get teammates out of bad situations by giving them temporary cover and a temporary shield that's just going to get shot out in just over a second. If it has 500 health, Vandal does 40 damage a shot and it takes 13 shots for the Vandal. Vandal shoots 11 bullets per second. So, you know, it's not lasting long at all if the enemies are shooting it out. Now let's look at some of the maps that I think Harbor could really shine on. The first map is Pearl, where you're going to be able to do really cool smokes like this around B site, where you're able to actually really get a lot deeper into site than a lot of other controllers are going to allow you to do. Same with A site. You know, I actually saw a wall where someone did like this, which gives you just all of sight. And, you know, combined with like some breach utility, maybe an aftershock through here, you can actually clear out this and then go all the way through here, which is really nice. Combined with, you know, the tidal wave, you saw it in the video, the tidal wave coming through here allows you to really take this fight and then this fight and then this fight all separately, because this trouble with coming through B-Link at the moment is that you could just get, you know, you've got to fight this and behind this box, and previously the box was here. There's so many different angles, and at any point you could just get swung by any of them. Now you get to isolate those angles a little bit more. You can do the same thing as well, pushing into art. You might be able to set up, you somehow take this first angle and then push through here where you're able to clear this angle and then this angle. So literally all these little like tight corridors where you've got to like clear something left and then clear something right, and there's something in front of you as well. That's where you're going to get a lot of value out of this Cascade from Harbor. All right, now let's look at Breeze as well, which is obviously Viper's home map, where you have a lot of ability with Viper to just wall off different angles of sight. You can wall off all like this. You can wall off this, or really tight if you want to. You can come mid and you can wall. East side as well, you have the ability. Most common wall is like walling the wall on B site. Sometimes you might see something like this, but generally this is considered a better wall. And so what's it going to look like for Harbor? Well, for Harbor, you know, he's able to bend these walls. So you might be able to do something where you're removing this common angle held in the back of sight by an enemy. You also might be able to wall like this, which allows you to get into more of the front part of sight. There's lots of different types of things that you can do, but I don't think this is giving you a huge advantage over Viper, especially on attack. But on defense, when you're retaking, it's actually huge. You can come through and you can wall off things. You can push your tidal wave into here. You can use your orb to help defuse spike. Same as B site. The tidal wave is going to be a huge one for retaking, because you can use it from here or from here, from here. You can use it to push all the way back to here. Let me turn off spawn barriers. All the way back to here, and hold this as well. You know, the same thing is that you could potentially, you know, you walk yourself into here, and then with Harbor you use the tidal wave along here so that you can then push through all kinds of things like this. There's also some really interesting ideas on Haven. I've got a video talking about Sogetsu's Viper set up on defense on Haven, and it's quite interesting being able to wall off and orb, and that's not really where Harbor would be going on Haven. Harbor's going to be much more effective on retake and also being able to just hit sight on Haven. So, you know, you can get walls that might be able, depending on how easy this wall is to control and how easily you can wall off Heaven, you could be able to potentially even get in here and do this semicircle wall for site. You obviously can just do this straight long wall for C as well. So there's some really interesting creative walls that you'll be able to get with Harbor on attack. And then on defense, you know, if you're playing mid or you're playing the heavy rotate, you know, you can just wall across here. You can wall across here, or maybe even, this is probably better. You can wall across like this, which still gives you like the garage smoke. Pushing up C long with your tidal wave as well, like up along here. Let me go back to using the Phoenix wall because that was so much better. Yeah, using the cascade ability to push up C, wall off between this part of site, and you can fight this front part of site, and then when this falls down, you can actually retake it back as well. That's going to be the same, you know, retaking on all of these sites as well, like this. Even from B, you can hit it like this, or, you know, from A as well. It's going to be depending on where you can like leave the wall. I feel like this is quite good actually. So you come in, you put the wall into here, and then you and your team, you run in, you fight this and this and this, and then you fight this last. And then you don't get these crossfires that, you know, the enemy potential crossfires where they're sitting here, 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 and they're holding like these angles. You can isolate these a lot better. That's how that wall, I envision, is going to be used really, really well. But the big one, I think, for me is Fracture. I think Harbor will definitely be really, really good on Fracture. The way that you can, that I think his wall will play out on Fracture, and his like tidal wave ability and all that, it's going to be really, really good because you can wall off like this. This gives you a lot of space. You know, you can also just do this wall as well. You know, you can wall off across this part of site. On B, you know, you're effectively replicating the Viper walls, but you actually, because you have more control, you can actually get more space with them. I think there's some potential, like, I think there's a lot of potential kind of really sneaky plays that you'll be able to like do with a chamber, for example. Imagine Chamber setting up a rendezvous here. And I don't know, another one back here. So you can use this to take this first fight, and then Harbor comes in and does a wall, like, I'll do it in green, a wall like this, where you're taking away like the generator and canteen angles, and then Chamber can just walk his way into here behind the wall and take this fight into spawn and get out, and you just be able to like cruise on in because this wall, you're dissecting the site in a way that's unable to do with any other agent currently. That's where I think some of this hidden strength of Harbor might really come up with things like Chamber or Yoru or Jet, where you can create these pathways for these infiltrator type agents to get into these really sneaky spots and be able to get out, get a pick and get out. And then lastly, I think his wall could be really, really handy on Ascent. You know, the current Viper wall is kind of like this if you were to play Viper on Ascent, which no one ever does. But, you know, being able to wall like in these sort of 90-degree curves, wall off all of heaven. Like, this is a wall that is just not possible with any other agent right now. That could be really strong. Just being able to wall off all of heaven into A could be crazy. And often you're going to have a lurker who isn't your smoker on Ascent because you've got Killjoy or you've got Chamber or something like that. And generally, like, you're running Omen or Astra. And so being able to just like hit site with your team as your controller and leave your Sentinel be the lurk, it's going to be quite strong, I feel. Also, you know, you can be walking up Cat with your tidal wave and like blocking the site to this while you're pushing up into Cat, you know, yada yada yada. So yeah, bit of a rambly kind of video for me. Hopefully when I've edited this up and you get to this point, it's all made sense and there's some ideas and talking about some different ideas with the wall and how he plays out differently to Viper. I think the main kind of thing is you're going to be playing him like an initiator, but your tools are cutting off areas and smoking for your teammates to fill in behind, rather than you know, the stuns and the flashes. If you enjoyed the content, please leave a comment and a like below. And if you want to see more videos like this, I'll link to right down here, I guess. There'll be my Ultimate Lurkers guide, where we also analyze Loud Less's game from the upper bracket final at Champions. And then also the last game from the Wattage, the casual esports league that myself and What's the Matter run. There's links in description to all of that as well. So yeah, thanks so much for watching and take care. Have a good one.